Oscars.
Guys,
Oh,
come
no,
on.
no, for real. Welcome to this week's episode of Golden Point Podcast. We are joined with James and Boosh. We're going to deep dive into the team list analysis. So we're going to start with the Penrith Panthers taking on the Roosters. This is tonight at 7:50. All right, boys, what are your thoughts on this game?
Obviously Nathan Cleary has returned for the Panthers. Questions still loom around that shoulder injury. Personally, I don't believe he's fully fit. I think he's going to have a hard time tackling, especially the Angus Crichton on that edge. I think the key for the Roosters to win this game is just going to be running straight lines straight at Nathan Cleary.
This is more of a fight between the forward packs, in my opinion. I think both teams have one of the best forward packs in the comp. I think the big names to look out for in that forward pack, I think, is going to be Angus Crichton going up against Liam Martin on those edges. I think Spencer Leniu has to do a role in the middle to try and
Yeah,
win
he's
the
got a
game for
big
the
role to
Roosters.
play. He's got a
Yeah.
big role. Fill in JWH's
Um,
number 8 number.
I do have Panthers down to win this game, but I would not be surprised if the Roosters take it just through that edge. Liam Martin's going to have a lot of work to do covering for Nathan Cleary. Obviously, the Roosters do have Sam Walker, Brandon Smith, Victor Radley all out. They will not be playing finals footy. They're out for the season. I think Sandon Smith will step up big time. We've seen bits and pieces of the game. It's going to be a big challenge. I think Connor Watson coming in at hooker is probably an upgrade from Brandon Smith. I think he helps get that ruck, that middle of the field going nice and quickly, quick play the balls, good service. Obviously, was originally a half, so I think we could see some potential good kicking game out of hooker as well there from Connor Watson. I do, as I said, I have Panthers winning this game, but I will not be surprised if the Roosters take it out.
I reckon the Roosters are going to win, to be honest. They have more experience in like these type of games. I reckon they're going to do it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think we can move on now to
Yep.
Saturday at 4 p.m. We have the Melbourne Storm taking on the Cronulla Sharks. Obviously, Sharks have a very poor finals record, haven't won a finals game since 2018. Start of the week, I had Melbourne as my outright winners, unfortunately. However, as the week's gone on, I've started to get a bit more faith in the Sharks team. They obviously did beat Melbourne without Hines down in Melbourne in round 10 this year. However, Melbourne were also missing, I believe, Pappenhausen was out of that game. Obviously, Munster wasn't playing. Um, so it will be a very interesting matchup. I still do have Melbourne down as winning this game, but I think for the Sharks, I think it'll be a very close game once again. I think the Sharks are probably my Smokies as the best underdog to win this week. I think most teams try and go to Melbourne and try grind out a game, just put their head down, play through the middle. I think for Sharks to win this game, they need to start playing second phase footy, offloads, get it out the back. They've got to make the Storm uncomfortable. Attacking that edge, that right edge with Nick Meaney. I think if Hines and Wilton can run some straight lines down that edge, I think they will cause problems for the Storm.
Yeah. I think Storm are going to win, to be honest. They just do better in these type of games. They got Pappenhausen and Hughes. Like, that's really good, to be honest. Like, coming in for Storm, that's big news. I don't think Sharks can do it, to be honest.
I do agree. I do have Melbourne down as winning this game.
Yeah.
Jerome Hughes career best form.
Yeah, he's been great in fantasy as well this season. Hughes, not so much Pappenhausen with injuries, but yeah, Hughes is a key player
Yeah,
in these
Jerome
games.
Hughes, no. They've obviously got Cameron Munster as well. They've got a great halves pairing there.
Yeah.
I think Melbourne's biggest issue would be their forward pack. I think the Sharks have a bigger forward pack. This is one of the weaker forward packs we've seen from Melbourne in the last few years. Obviously, they have Eli Katoa, who's been in great form this year. Other than that, they've struggled a bit with injuries. Christian Welsh hasn't really been the same after his ACL injury last year. I think the Sharks have the bigger and better pack here. Cameron McInnes with the down, doing lots of work as he always does. But I do have Melbourne slightly beating the Sharks here, but I wouldn't be surprised if Cronulla come in with an upset.
Besides the Broncos games, their wins this year haven't been all that convincing. I think
Agree.
they've had to go down with their injuries and play really gutsy football to be able to win. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Sharks possibly scrape it in Golden Point here. And I think if the Sharks are to go on to win, I think Hines has to be the main
He
man
needs to
behind
step
it.
up in these
I
games.
think Hines has to step up and demand more of the ball instead of sharing the kicking with Trindle. Because the way I think Sharks at their best is Hines being the main creator, not sharing the roles with Trindle.
Yeah, he needs to carry the
Yeah.
team to win, pretty much.
Obviously, Hines has a bit of a reputation of going missing in these big games per se. Missed an important few field goals against the Bulldogs earlier in the year.
Yeah,
Um, I think this game is definitely time for Hines
yeah.
to prove his worth. Obviously, signing $1 million a year contract extension earlier. I think this is a time for Hines to step up. The last few rounds we saw, it seems he's regained his confidence. I said this when he originally got injured. I think it was both good for the Sharks and Hines. I think it was good for him to have some time away from the game. It seems he's come back a better footballer, regained his confidence, kind of shaken off that Origin performance a bit.
I think this is more of just a make or break game for Hines to kind of prove that he is one of the best, if not the best, half in the game behind Nathan Cleary. I
Yeah,
think if they are to do well, Hines has to try and prove himself in these big games because he has Origin 1 especially. He's been ghosting a lot in these big games. As Folksy said, I think pretty much a smoky. I think they can win this game if they show up as the Sharks that have been a great team this year. I believe they have one of the best records against teams in the top 8 this year. I
yeah,
think if they are to win, they have to show that they can be premiership contenders and not pretenders.
Yeah,
yeah.
I definitely agree with that. I believe Sharks are 6 from 10 against top 8 sides this year. Obviously, had that big 42-0 loss to Penrith about halfway through the season. I think they've moved on from that. But as we all know, finals footy is just completely
It's
different.
big, yeah. It's completely different to
I think
normal.
I will move on now to the Cowboys and Knights on Saturday night at 7:50. I think Cowboys are outright favourites for this one. Um, I think that's pretty clear. Obviously, that Newcastle edge with Fletcher Sharp and Dane Gagai hasn't been the best defensively. I think if Tom Dearden can get quick ball outside to Drinkwater and Holmes on that edge, I think the Knights will struggle quite a lot. Um, I think key for the Knights in this one is just going to be slowing down the game, slow down the ruck, kick for touch as much as possible. Just try and halt the Cowboys' momentum once again, and they would make
Yeah,
them uncomfortable. I think Cowboys are one of those teams that once they get in that rhythm, it's very hard to stop them. Especially with Tom Dearden, he's been in great form this year. I expect the Cowboys to step up and take this one. However, it will be key for them to shut down Kalen Ponga, current Dalian medalist. That is arguable, though. I do believe Sean Johnson should have won that last year. But we all know Kalen Ponga is a great player. He can flip the game on its head. So I think that Ponga will, if Knights
yeah.
want to do anything, Ponga will have to step up.
He's got a big role in this game to play.
I definitely think Ponga is definitely one of the key players in this game. If Newcastle are to win anything, then it's going to have to come through the hands of Kalen Ponga.
Yeah,
Obviously, Adam O'Brien still has no clue what his halves combination should be. I think Jackson Hastings not starting in the halves this game will affect the Knights. I believe in a game like this, they could really use Hastings' kicking game just to halt that Cowboys momentum. So I think a lot of the Knights' performance in this game is going to rest in the hands of Kalen Ponga.
If the Cowboys are to go and win this game, I think it would be come down to Dearden, and I think especially eyes will be put on Scott Drinkwater and his performances this year. I think hot take. I think Scott Drinkwater has been the second best fullback in the comp behind James Tedesco this year.
yeah.
And he's shown that in most of the games when Dearden hasn't really stepped up. They've gone to Drinkwater to produce these magical performances. And I think if Drinkwater and Deedon can link up like they did multiple times this season, I think they did it especially well last week. And in the game against Melbourne, I think the Knights are going to have a hard challenge trying to stop them.
Moving on to the Doggies versus Seagulls. Will the Seagulls humble the Doggies? Because apparently their fans are very cocky, saying that they're going to go all the way to the grand final, which is highly unlikely.
I don't see it happening. I don't see Manly beating
I mean,
the Bulldogs.
they could do it, but I mean, there's no way they're beating Manly. I just don't think it's going to happen.
I think this game
they do have Adokar
though
though, and a few
Josh
experienced
Adokar,
players.
obviously.
Oh yeah, he's out though, isn't he? Yeah.
Have stood
He's been
himself
stood
down.
Yeah.
That whole situation is still a bit black and white. No one's really sure what's going on. Apparently, tested positive at a roadside test. Did his own test and it came back negative. However, he took it upon himself to step himself down for this game. However, I don't think that's a massive loss for the Bulldogs. I think Gerald Skelton has been quite good this year. As we know, Adokar was out for quite a few games with injuries this year, so I don't think the Bulldogs is going to be a big change for them. Obviously, we have Burton and Bronson Xerri coming back into the side. Xerri returns from suspension. His first season back in the NRL, I think he's been quite good. I would say a little bit underrated. I think he's flown under the radar a bit. I think Bronson Xerri has been quite good this year. Obviously, for Manly, we have Tom Trbojevic coming back from that shoulder injury. I think that is a massive bonus for Manly. As we've known for many years now, when Manly don't have Trbojevic, they struggle. When Turbo's in that team, they are a completely different team. My only concern with this Manly side is they've just been so inconsistent this year. One week they'll look like a premiership contender. The next week they look like a wooden spoon contender. Obviously, we have Luke Brooks as well. After 230 games, he will be stepping up to play his first finals game. So lots of pressure on Brooks there to see if he will perform. I think he has a point to prove. And I actually think that Luke Brooks will finish this game man of the match. I have Manly taking this one out. But once again, it's going to be a very close game. Stephen Crichton will cause problems out for the outside backs for Manly. Other than that, I think Manly should have them covered in this one.
Yeah.
Bulldogs do have quite a small forward pack. Stack that up against the Manly forward pack. I think Manly will win this game through the middle. I think if Bulldogs have a chance, it's going to be playing through their outside backs.
I see the game being very close as well, just off of the fact that I don't know what Manly side we're going to get. And I think if they can shut down Turbo in this game, I think they can definitely win this game. Turbo would be the man to watch for them. In the last game they played, I believe he scored a hat-trick against the Bulldogs in the regular season game, the last time they played. And he showed why he is one of the best fullbacks in the comp. But I think showing that the Bulldogs have equal second best defense in the game with the Sharks. They've only averaged up until that Manly game. They only conceded on average 18 points a game, which is one of the strongest defenses in the league, only behind Penrith and tied with the Sharks. I think if they can just play through the middle, get tackles, and keep themselves strong in the middle, I think they have a way for winning this game. But I think putting down the amount of errors they make a game as well, they have the fourth most. They make the fourth most errors a game with around 11 errors a game. I think if they can keep it slow, just play heads up footy, going straight through the middle, taking dummy runs, I think they can tire down the middle of Manly and try and find a way to break through in the first half. And I think that's the way they're going to do it. And I think if they're able to do that, they can win this game. And I think it's going to be a very close game.
I reckon so it is. Anyways, moving on to the Daily M. So we got a few potential winners here. We got Jerome Hughes, Teddy, Turbo, Angus Crichton, and Matty Burton. What are your thoughts on these players, guys? Do you reckon they deserve to win?
I think this is Jerome Hughes' award to lose. I think he's been by far the best player in the competition this year. I think Tedesco might come close, but I believe this should be given to Jerome Hughes without a doubt. He's just been incredible this year for Melbourne, especially with key parts of their spine missing throughout the year. They had no Cameron Munster for quite a bit of the year. Obviously, Pappenhausen has missed a few games to injury, and I think Jerome Hughes has just stepped up, and he's just been phenomenal, leading Melbourne to that minor premiership. Um, as a Sharks supporter, I am very worried about what he will do on Saturday afternoon. Um, I do also have Angus Crichton up there. I think he's been um, incredible for the Roosters. Obviously, he's had a troubled few years. He's come back this year and he's been one of the best players in the comp. Best player for the Blues. He's just been incredible. I was to see Tom Trbojevic. I think he would have been in with a chance, but I think he's missed too many games due to injury this year, unfortunately. So I do believe this is a Jerome Hughes award to lose. On that note, I think Nico Hines will be the Dally M.
Nico Hines
could win the Daily M.
No, I think this is Jerome Hughes' award. I would be very surprised if anyone else takes it off his hands.
Yeah.
I think Hughes has very much stepped up his game this year to establish himself. I think if Cleary wasn't injured, if Cleary was able to stay fit for the whole season, I think we would be having the debate between him and Hughes as the best halfback in the comp. I think Hughes has been the best halfback in the comp by far. I think what he's done in that Melbourne side, going from being like the side piece, I would say, to Munster, Pappy, and Grant, I think he's stepped up the game and been the main man in that Melbourne side and lead them to that minor premiership. He's established something that he's kind of lacked or struggled to develop throughout the years in Melbourne. I think he's pitched it to a T. His running game is perfect. His kicking game has gone up a level from last year, and he's been able to score plenty more tries on the back of that.
All right, moving on to our Daily M teams. So we're going to name positions, and we're going to do players, and we're also going to do honourable mentions. So, James, if you want to start.
We also have
we can all start with our fullbacks. For my fullback, I have put down James Tedesco. Obviously, Roosters with the top 4 finish. At the start of the year and throughout that Origin period, I was convinced that James Tedesco wasn't the player he used to be. I thought he was washed up. He's gone ahead and proven myself, and I think a lot of other people wrong. I stepped up big time for this Roosters team. He will be key in their matchup against Penrith tonight. He still proves that on his day he can be one of the best players in the comp. And then for my honourable mention, I've gone with Tom Trbojevic. He's returned from injury and he just looked unstoppable. He was scoring hat tricks, doubles, try assists, everything. He was doing the whole lot. I think I would have Trbojevic ahead of Tedesco if he hadn't missed so many games due to injury. But due to that, I don't think he was able to collect enough points to be able to take that from Tedesco.
Yeah. So for my fullback, same pretty much as James said. I also chose Teddy, and my honourable mentions was Dylan Edwards. So Boosh.
Yeah, I think Dylan Edwards is a good option.
Yeah, he's been a great player this season.
He's been phenomenal. He's phenomenal for the Blues. I think he's flown under the radar a little bit this year. Obviously, he missed a few weeks with that PCL injury, I believe it was. It'll be interesting to see. He looks like he's been struggling a little bit with that knee in those last rounds of the season. It'll be interesting to see how he holds up through the intensity of finals footy. But I do believe Edwards is a good selection there as well.
Yeah.
No surprise that I also have Teddy as my fullback of the year. I think he's kind of replicated the form, not to the point where he was the Daily Analyst of the year in 2019, but I think it's up there with that season. I think if he didn't perform the way he did this year and possibly perform the way he did last year, I think the Roosters probably wouldn't have been in the top 4 this year, probably edged around 5th, 6th, where the Bulldogs probably are. I think Teddy is instrumental to that Roosters team. If he turns up, the team also turns up. And I think he's shown why he is one of the best fullbacks in the comp this year. My honorable mention was Scott Drinkwater, just because of the consistency that he's had this year. He hasn't missed many games this year, and he has shown why he is one of the best fullbacks in the comp. Underrated pick, very underrated for me. I think he has the second most try assists this year. He has 25 try assists. I believe he scored about, I'm not sure how many tries, around that 10 mark, I think. He has the most line break assists in the comp, 29. I think he's probably the main man with Tom Dearden in that Cowboys attack.
Yep, yep. All right, so we're going to move on to the wingers now.
For my wingers, I've gone with Lomax, the man who apparently didn't want to play on the wing at the beginning of the season. Obviously, he's left to go to Parramatta so he can continue to play in the centres. However, I think he has been by far the best winger this year. I think he's really done wonders for that Dragon side. Obviously, he was phenomenal in Origin. Massive raps on Lomax on the wing. He's looked unstoppable out there. I think going forward, that is his best position. I think if he wants the best out of his career, he should continue to play on the wing. And then for my other winger, I've gone with Ronaldo Mulatalo. Weren't many other options that have really stood out this year. It was a toss-up between Mulatalo and Khan Pereira. I've just gone Mulatalo based on team standings. Obviously, the Titans had struggled a bit this year, so I've got Mulatalo down as my other winger of the year. I think he's been great playing on that left edge. It's come up with some big moments for the Sharks. And then for my honourable mentions, I've gone with Brian To'o and Khan Pereira. I think for Brian To'o's standards, he's had a relatively quiet year. But that's only because he's just set the bar so high for the player he is. I feel like I just haven't seen much of him this year, so I've got him down as an honourable mention, and then Khan Pereira as my other. Obviously, leading try scorer for competition. He also becomes the first player from the Titans to be the leading try scorer or point scorer in any competition, so that's including reserve grade, Intrust Super Cup, all of those. So he's been really good this year. Only his second season in the NRL. I expect big things from him coming up soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, with my wingers, pretty much as James said, don't want to repeat too much, but I chose Lomax as the main winger. And then for honourable mentions, Brian To'o. Yeah. Bush?
So for my wingers, I also had Lomax. I think it's a huge loss for the Dragons losing him to Parramatta, but I don't think because he didn't want to play on the wing. I think it was the main reason he didn't want to stay with the Dragons. But I think he's a much better player on the wing. He's shown in many games this year, especially against the Rabbitohs, which game I went to. I think it was in round 8 or 9. Yeah, he showed why he is one of the best, if not the best winger in the comp this season. Put on a barnstorming performance against the Rabbitohs. Scored a 2-point field goal in that game. I believe he had a try assist, and he scored a try in that game as well. He showed why he is an elite player this year and kind of taken his game to a whole new level. Earning a New South Wales Origin cap, and I think he'd be one of the front runners to earn that wing spot for Australia for the Pacific Championships. My second winger, surprised you two didn't mention this man. Jacob Carraz was my second winger of the year.
No.
And I think it's no.
No, I don't think he deserves a spot there. I mean, he's been. Yeah.
I think he's had a really good season, Kiraz. Obviously, those meters coming out of his own end are very important, and as we see with all these top teams, they have those outside backs that can really help get that front foot on their sets coming out of their own end. We see it with Panthers. They've got Taruva and To'o, who are just hard runners, meter eaters. Sharks with Multalo and Katoa. Roosters, Dom Young and Tupou are great at it. So I think that's a big reason to the Bulldogs' success this year. They've got those outside backs that can really get the set going coming out of their own 20. So I can see why you've picked Kiraz there. I do believe there were other players ahead of him, but I don't disagree with that. I think that's a good pick.
Yeah, I think Perez has the most run meters in the comp. He's made the most runs out of his own end in the competition, 50 more than second place, which was actually kind of Tracy. I think he's been the best out of the outside backs for the Bulldogs with Stephen Crichton on that edge. I think them two would be a deadly combination, and I would love to see them link up like they did in the regular season against Manly. I think they'll provide a real problem for them on Saturday. Is it Saturday?
Yes,
Sunday?
Yeah, Saturday.
Sunday night. Sunday afternoon, 4 o'clock. I believe.
Yeah, I think he's changed his game. He was fairly under the radar last year for his rookie season, but this season he's taken it up to a whole nother level, and I love the way that Cameron Sonaro has used him. He's very versatile as well. Played in the centres to start the year. Was decent there. Moved towards the wing where his preferred position, and he's just shown why he is an elite player for the Bulldogs and one of their best this season. And for my honourable mentions, I had also Brian To'o. I think his season this season is one of the best among the wingers, but it'd still be low for his standards. I think a fairly average season for Brian To'o can still be considered one of the best seasons for a winger. I think around the Origin period, he kind of slowed down a bit, but I think after Origin, when the main team was back, he showed why he is the best winger in the comp. And I think if he can keep that momentum going into the finals, he will be a real problem for opposing wingers. My other honourable mention was Daniel Tupou. I think he's been very underrated in the last 2 years. I think he scored 19 tries this year. His running game, taking the ball out from the back, and I know Oscar's going to love when I give praise to Tupou. He's been a great player this year. He's been a great player this year. I think he deserved to be in that Origin setup, and he's shown why he is a veteran at the game and a great winger.
Yeah, that's a good option there, mate. So those were your wingers, folks. These are yours.
I think they're good picks there from Bush. Very unique, which I like that bit of variety. Yeah, I think I agree with those. I don't really have an issue with those picks. I think Tupou has been a little bit quiet this year, but I can see why you're giving him his flowers there. Anyways, so we'll move on to
moving on to the 5'8".
Centers.
Centers first.
Okay.
My centers, I think there's been quite a few good centers this year. I've gone obviously Stephen Crichton. He is just out and out being the best winger, best center in the comp. I don't think anyone has come close to him. Dane Gagai from Newcastle is one of my honourable mentions. He has been quite good for Newcastle, but I think as Newcastle struggled a bit through the regular season, he hasn't been able to show his full potential. I also had Herbie Farnworth down as one of my honourable mentions. I think he's been phenomenal for the Dolphins this year. Unfortunately, did miss a fair bit of time due to injury. So with that, I have Kale Iro as my other center of the year.
Yep.
So I think Iro has been phenomenal in his rookie season. He is just meter eating, very vital for the Sharks getting out of their own end. He's proven that he is NRL ready, and I think he's earned his spot in that Dally M Team of the Year.
I've chosen Critter. He's been fucking absolutely amazing this year. Definitely helped the Bulldogs where they are right now. Scoring tries. He's just an absolute gun in the centres. Also great for fantasy as well. Getting the points. He's just a really good choice in centres. And I've also chosen Iro for the Sharks. He's also been really good this season. Same with fantasy. Racking up those points. And he's just a phenomenal player. And for honourable mentions, I've chosen the better Gagai. We've got Dane Gagai for the Knights. He's just been really good this year. A few rounds ago when both the Gagais versed each other, it was clear that Dane's the better Gaga, and he takes the spot there. All right, Bush.
I have the same centers. I have Critter and I have Era. I think Stephen Crichton has shown why he is the best center in the comp this year. Moving over to a Bulldogs side, he's led them very valiantly towards a sixth place finish. I think he's been my captain of the year. Very doubtful, very controversial at the beginning of the year for Serrato to give Crichton the captaincy over players like Reid Marnie or Max King, but I think he's shown why he can be a leader for this Bulldogs team. And my other centre, Kale Iro, rookie of the year by far. I think if Galvin wasn't suspended, Galvin would have been my rookie of the year. But I think Iro's shown why he is a barnstorming centre and a man to watch in that Sharks team, taking over Talakai, which is a very hard thing to do considering how good Talakai was all those years ago. So I think Iro has shown why he is the second best centre in the year, I think, behind Critter. My honourable mentions were also Dan Gagai and Herbie Farnworth as well. I think making the move over to the Dolphins and working under Wayne Bennett, I think has been a great move for Herbie Farnworth. He's shown again why he is one of the best centers in the comp, which he already shown at the Broncos. But I think he's been the outside back to go to take runs out from their deep end for the Dolphins. I love the way he runs the ball. He's very barnstorming. He can get through tackles if you need him to. I think in the last game against the Knights, he showed how powerful he is on the ball. I believe he had 8 or 9 tackle breaks against the Knights, and he's shown why he is a powerhouse in the center position.
Yeah, obviously, off that as well, he had an absolute monster game 2 weeks ago against Brisbane, his former club. By far, he was the best player of the round that week. I think Herbie Farnworth would have edged Kale Iro for centre of the year if he didn't have that injury earlier in the year where he missed quite a few games. Other than that, we'll move on to our 5/8s now. Yeah. I have Matt Burden as my 5/8 of the year.
You're lagging there.
He's just been...
Yeah, keep going. You're good now.
Good now?
Yep, you're good.
Burton's just steered that Bulldogs team. He's been absolutely phenomenal for them. Really stepped up this year. People are starting to have their doubts as Burton as a half. I think he's really shown that he can be one of the best halves in the comp this year. So I think really well done there. I think my honourable mention I have down Tom Dearden. Once again, another player who's really stepped up big time this year. He was phenomenal for the Cowboys, definitely their shining light. And as I said earlier, I think Tom Dearden will be very vital in the Cowboys finals run.
Alright, so those were the 5/8s.
Yeah, 5/8. What's your 5/8 also?
Alright. So I've chosen. Fuck, you guys have chosen the same ones that I'm. Alright.
We all chose Matt Burden. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
We all chose Matt Burden, yeah.
Okay, so my 5/8s were Matt Burden. Again, he's been really good this season, steering the ships for the Doggies, and he's got a big role to play up against Manly, and he's just got to step in. Without a car out, he's got a big role to carry, and he's going to hopefully bring Bulldogs to glory and win this game, because I'm hoping for Bulldogs to win this game here, but I just don't think they're going to do it. I reckon Manly are going to win this one. Sort of unfortunate there. For my honourable mentions, I've chosen Ben Hunt. He's had a great...
Hunt's a half, mate.
When I meant Luai.
You're on Luai?
So my other half, I meant Jerome Luai. Honourable mention, Jerome Luai. He's been great this season. A bit he's sort of flown underneath the radar compared to last season and the year before that, whatever. But Cleary's back, so that sort of releases a bit of pressure off him. He sort of had to carry the team when Cleary was out. So yeah, he's got a big role to play Yeah.
I think Luai did step up big time this year. Obviously, with Cleary out for a lot of the season, he stepped up as a halfback. Really controlled his team around the park. I think it's good signs for Tigers fans. You know, you got a good half coming next year that can. He's shown that he can control the field, control the tempo of the game. So I think, um, I do agree with that. I think he would be very close. However, he did fall off a bit towards the end of the season. Panthers did struggle to beat a few teams. Very close game against Gold Coast last week. If Brian Kelly wasn't stripped of that try, then I believe the Titans would have taken it out.
Yeah.
Yep.
So for my 5'8", I also have Matt Burton. I think enough's been already said about him being the best 5'8" in the comp. Steered that Bulldogs side towards that sixth-place spot. He's been the main playmaker in that team. You know, traveling between having a halfback like Drew Hutchison at the beginning of the year, what a disaster that man was on fantasy for one. And moving towards Toby Sexton, who is very much complements him. I think Burton's kicking game has improved a lot with Sexton in the halves with him. And if any fullbacks that have to deal with the Burton bomb know they got a task on their hands. I think my honourable mention as well, it was Tom Dearden. I think he's had a great season this season as well, stepping up to be that main 5'8" in place of Cameron Munster in the Queensland setup, and he's shown why he is a great player. I think he's probably the next man to take over Cameron Munster's spot in Origin, and he's shown why he can be the main playmaker because he does it so well. Taking over Chad Townsend's spot as the main playmaker in that Cowboys side, switching up with Jake Clifford. I think Clifford allows for Dearden to run the footy more, make some more aggressive kicks into touch. I think that halves combination very much complements each other and shown why Dearden can be the player that he is.
Yeah, I agree with you there, mate.
Moving on to our half back, I think this is an obvious choice. I think everyone should have this as their Dally M half back.
Jerome Hughes.
With Brooks.
Yeah, Luke Brooks.
What do you mean, mate? He's a flop this season. He's left the Tigers, mate. He's fucking lost. He's lost that Manly, mate.
From the Tigers, man.
He's lost that Manly, mate. I don't know what you're on about.
Contention for signing of the year, honestly.
Nah, he's been a flop this season. There's no way you're putting him on the list.
Yeah, no, Jerome Hughes is my halfback of the year. As we spoke about before when we were talking about our Dally M winners, I think he's been outright best player in the comp this year. I think he will win this award by a long margin. I don't think anyone comes close. I don't think I need to say much about Jerome Hughes because I think everyone knows how good he has been this year. My honourable mention, I've gone with Ben Hunt. I think Ben Hunt has been great for the Dragons this year. Really kicking the Dragons out of trouble. I believe he had most kick meters this year, most kicks taken. So really kicking the Dragons out of trouble, getting them out of their own end. I think he controlled the Dragons well. He had a good forward pack in front of him, which really allowed him to play out the back a bit more. So I think Ben Hunt did have a really good year. Be interesting to see where he goes. Rumored that he may be heading off to Gold Coast. I think, unfortunately for him, that will probably be the end of his career at Gold Coast. I don't see him winning much up there, but I think, yes, Ben Hunt is my honourable mention for halfback of the year.
Yeah. So for my halfbacks, I don't have too much to say on these players. Both really good players. The most obvious one is definitely Jerome Hughes. And for my honourable mention is Ben Hunt. As I said, don't have too much to say about that. Both really good players, and I just think Hughes slightly deserves... maybe not slightly, but he deserves it a lot more than Ben Hunt. He's been great this season. Folks, you're lagging.
I have... what?
You're lagging, folks.
Oh, folks.
You froze.
I wasn't talking.
You froze.
Oh, sorry.
My halfback of the year is also Jerome Hughes, and not much needs to be said about him. I think we've already said enough about him.
Yeah.
My honorable mention was also Ben Hunt, so we all had the same choices. I think Ben Hunt for the Dragons has been he's always been the best player there since he joined. He's shown why he can be an elite halfback in the competition, playing around as a hooker as well. I think he can play great in both positions, and he's shown why he is the conductor for that Dragons team, scoring, having the most try assists in the competition with 30, doing the most kicking out of any half in the comp, and I think if Hunt wasn't in that Dragons team this year, I think we would be way worse than we were this season.
Yeah. All right, folks, your hooker.
Moving on to our hookers. I have Harry Grant down as my hooker of the year. I think the hookers this year altogether were very underwhelming. I struggled to pick a hooker, but only because none of them really stood out to me this year. I think Harry Grant was pretty quiet. Damien Cook was pretty quiet. Reid Marnie did improve on last year, but once again, I don't think it was his best season. Rayleigh brothers were pretty quiet. I think it was a very quiet year all round for hookers. On that, I've gone with Harry Grant. I think he stood out the most in that minor premiership side. And then as my honorable mention, I've gone with Damien Cook. I think he'll be a great addition to that Dragons side next year. With the addition of Cook, I think the Dragons will definitely play finals footy next year. I don't believe they'll have what it takes to make the top four, but I think Damien Cook will be a great addition to that team.
Yeah. Okay, so my hookers, I chose Damien Cook, as folks has chosen. He's been a great player this year, and I reckon he's definitely going to make an impact over at the Dragons next season. Despite his age, he's a really good player. He's always been a great role model for South, and he's definitely going to continue that over at the Dragons. And my honourable mention was Harry Grant. So with this player, Harry Grant, I reckon he's sort of flown under the radar this season. I think he's still really good, but he's just I don't think he's what am I saying, cunt? I don't know what to say about him really, but he's just a good hooker.
Yeah,
but he's definitely been a bit quiet this year. He's always been good on NRL fantasy, always racking up 40+ points every game, but I definitely think he's been a lot more quiet this season than last season.
He's been very quiet this year. It's hard to say much about them.
All right,
I have Reid Marnie as my hooker of the year. Actually, I think compared to him and Grant this season, I think they're not far off. They both had really great games. They both had plenty of stinkers or quiet games throughout the years. But I think Reid has had more of an impact on that Bulldogs team than Grant has had in that Melbourne team. I think that first 5-6 game stretch of the season, Reid Marnie was the best hooker in the game, showing up for the Bulldogs, scoring, assisting. He showed how versatile he is in that position. He's made the most tackles out of any hooker in the comp. But with that, he's also made the most missed tackles in the comp, which comes as a given for making so many tackles. But I think he is that pillar towards that Bulldog spine. I think if he doesn't perform the way that he does, I think Matt Burton struggles a little bit more than he did this year when it comes to his kicking game. I think Reid Marnie's kicking game was absolutely great this year. He kind of took some of the kicking off of Matt Burton's shoulders to make him feel more comfortable within that Bulldogs team. I think he's shown why he is the best hooker this year compared to Harry Grant, which I have as my honourable mention.
Yeah.
Front rowers.
Props. We've got big props here.
I think front rowers pick themselves. I've got Adam Fanua-Blake as one, and as my other, I have Joseph Tarpany. I think Tarpany and Fanua-Blake have both been really exceptional for their respective clubs this year. As a Sharks fan, very excited to have Fanua-Blake coming over to the Shire for next season. My honourable mentions, I've got Mitch Barnett. His leaps and bounds in his game this year. He's really improved, become one of those top front rowers. And then my other prop of the year, I've got As my honourable mention, I've got Payne Haas. I think he would have been Dally M Prop of the Year if he didn't miss so many games due to injury. So on that, even in a struggling Warriors side, Fanil Blake has just been their shining light, scoring tries, run meters, post contact meters. He's just very dangerous forward. And then same with Joseph Tarpany, leading from the front for the young Canberra Raiders side. They've got quite a few young players coming through the ranks. I expect we'll see a bit more of Chevy Stewart next year. Ethan Strange will be developing his game. I think having Joseph Tarpany running up the middle for them has just been phenomenal. It's allowed those young halves and backs to really show what they can do.
Yeah. So for my props, again, I've chosen Tarpany. Not too much to say about him. Folks already talked about him. And for my honourable mention, the one and only Spencer Lanier.
Take a Roosters
when he's
jersey off,
playing, he's really good on the field.
When he's
This-
playing, he got suspended.
Despite the 8-week suspension over that silly incident in round 1, that racial comment, I mean, it doesn't really stop him, his footy, stop him shining. When he's playing, he's a great player, but off the field he might, do a few silly things, and he's had a few fights with players. I mean, it doesn't really stop him from being there. He's a great player, running around with the footy. He's a great player, but despite some little silly things, it might sort of affect the choice that some people might make on him.
I have Adam Fanil-Blake as my prop of the year as well. I think James already said enough on him. I think he's very much replicated what he did last year with the Warriors, barnstorming run out of the ball, big man. You can see him when you see him coming through. You'd be very scared to tackle him. I think Tohu Harris's injury really was, I think, the blessing in disguise for him and Mitch Barnett as well, because I think taking Tohu Harris off that team gives more freedom, I think, towards how Adam Fanil-Blake can play his game. He can make more runs, potentially pass the ball around in absence of Tohu Harris, but I think Dylan Walker has done a good job taking Tohu's place. But I think Adam Fanil-Blake out the best prop of the year so far. And my other prop of the year, I have Mitch Barnett. I've gone for both the Warriors forwards. I think Tohu Harris's injury, as I said before, was a blessing in disguise for Mitch Barnett. I think moving him from the second row into that forward pack a lot more often throughout the season revitalized his game. He went from being just an average to a decent, average to good, I would say, forward in the NRL to being probably, I think, he had a better season or equal season to what Adam Fanil-Blake had this year. Putting him on the ball, barnstorming around him and Adam Fanil-Blake running that forward pack, I think is very, very physical and very scary to come up against. I think especially he showed how great he is as a runner of the footy against the Bulldogs in that Golden Point loss. Ran for 226 meters, 5 offloads, 5 tackle breaks. I think he's shown why he can have that potential to be one of the best, if not the best, prop in the game for the Warriors. Yeah. My honourable mentions as well. I had Payne Haas. I think he would have been in the team of the year if he didn't get injured instead of Mitch Barnett. But I think that's just a kudos to what Payne Haas can do. Barnstorming run over the ball, him and Adam Fanil-Blake together in a front line would be astronomically incredible for a team. I think he's proved why he is a $1 million a year prop. He's shown he can make barnstorming runs, he can run for plenty of meters, break so many tackles, offload the ball. I think if you put him in the back line, I think he would be probably one of the best wingers or fullbacks in the comp. I think my other honourable mention was Joseph Tarpany. I think with Josh Papali'i not playing too many minutes this season for Canberra, I think he stepped up as being the main man in that forward pack and kind of leading the youth like K.O. Weeks, Ethan Strange, Chevy Stewart. We only got 2-3 games out of him, but I think he's been a great mentor for those younger players. I think he should be. He should be the captain of Canberra going into next season. He's shown why he can be a great leader.
Yeah, we have some breaking news from Channel 9 here. A bit of stats with James Tedesco at the Bluebet Stadium. So he's played 7 matches there, win 0, line breaks 2, try assists 2, and tries 1. Those are some pretty bad stats there, and he's got a tough night ahead of him, and hopefully he proves his stats wrong and scores, does better on the stats here, because these stats are pretty bad, especially going into the finals. You don't really want to be seeing that.
Yeah, that's not great news for the Roosters tonight, but
They'd have to pull off a masterclass to win tonight.
Anyways, moving on to our second rowers of the year, I have Angus Crichton. I think that's a very clear choice. He has definitely been out and out the best second rower. That Rooster side, his performances in Origin, he's just been incredible. He's a hard, gutsy runner. I wouldn't want to tackle him. I don't think many people would. I think he's been pivotal in that Rooster side. My other second rower, I have gone with the New Zealand international Britton Nickera. I believe he's the best line runner in the game. Off Trindle and Hines, he's always able to get through holes, scoring tries for the Sharks. As we saw last week, he was phenomenal with 2 tries against Manly. He just has an ability. He's not the biggest the biggest second rower, but he's very agile and fast. He's just got an ability to tear open teams' defenses, whether it's hitting a hole and then on the outside to Sione Katoa, or hitting a hole and just going through straight under the post. I see him as a very similar player to Liam Martin, except he's just got a bit more speed and agility. I think he's had a great year. He started off a bit slow, copped a suspension in the first round of this year. But it's only been up from there for him. I think he will take out the other second row spot. And then as my honourable mentions, I have Hudson Young from Canberra. I think with the injury of Zach Hosking, Hudson Young really stepped up this year. There was no Elliot Whitehead for a few games as well. I think he's just proving time and time again why he's one of the best in the competition. And alongside him, I've gone with Melbourne's Eli Katoa. I don't know what it is, but Craig Bellamy just has the ability to turn these players into absolute great football players. Slumped a bit at the Warriors, came across and joined Melbourne, and he's just been fantastic since then. So I have Eli Katoa as my second honourable mention.
Yep, so moving on to my second rows, I've got, as mentioned again, he's definitely got to be there, Angus Crichton. And also I've chosen Elliot Whitehead here. He's had a good season this year. He's had a great season this year, despite leaving the Raiders at the end of the season, so he's definitely made a big impact to the club. Big role model and a massive senior player at the Raiders, and I'm sure wherever he's going, I think he's retiring or he's moving clubs at the end of the season, so I'm sure he'd make an impact wherever he goes, and I'm sure he'd leave an impact for the new generations at the Raiders to maybe look up to him, and I don't know, look up to him as a great inspiration. And for my honourable mentions, has to be Nakora from the Sharks. He's been really good this season.
Yeah, so for my second rowers of the year, I think Angus Crichton is a given. I think this has been one of the greatest stories to tell this year. You know, Angus Crichton coming off of, I think did he do shrooms? I think it was something about that.
Yeah,
very bad mental
drug incident in Paris, I believe, and
then early preseason.
A psychotic episode, I believe. So he spent some time away from the game and has just come back and been brilliant.
Yeah, I think spending that time away from the game, kind of working on himself, coming back to being one of the best players in the game, I think is a real great story to tell for Angus Crichton. I think if you told me that Angus Crichton would come back and be one of the best second rowers in the game when he was on the bench at the Roosters, I would have laughed at you. But I think he's proved why he has that X factor and kind of replicated the form that he had in during COVID, I think 2020, 2021, when he was the best second rower in the club. He's shown on another level, especially on Origin, being the best. My pick for being the best player of the Origin series, winning that Wally Lewis medal. I think he stood up, especially in game 2 and game 3 for the Blues. He's shown why he is the best second rower in the competition. And a shoe-in for the Dally M medalist, but Jerome Hughes is going to win that, I reckon. And my other second rower, I had Eli Katoa from Melbourne. I think he had one of the best opening 5 weeks for a second rower in the comp, missing round 4 with the bye, but I think coming back against the Broncos to score 2 tries on them and have a barnstorming performance really showed the potential that this man had. I think he was wasted in his last year at the Warriors, but then moving over to Melbourne to be reinvented as a line running second row. I think Craig Bellamy has done a great job developing Eli Katoa to be one of the best second rowers in the comp. I think he scored the most tries for a second rower this season with 12. He's shown that he has that try scoring ability. He has that line breaking capability. I think on that edge, he poses a real problem to any opposite second rowers. And my honorable mentions, I had Britton Nikora. I think if he didn't get injured and suspended, I guess if he didn't get injured throughout the back end of the season, I think he would have been in this team instead of Eli Katoa.
Mate, it's Nikora, not Nikora.
Nikora.
It's Nikora, man.
Nikora, or whatever. If he didn't get injured in the back end of the season, I think he would have been in this team instead of Eli Katoa. He's shown how great of a player he is. New Zealand international. He's shown on levels how great of a player he can be. Coming back from that injury, not having Nico Hines on his side, I think really pushed him down, because I think his connection with Nico Hines is one of the best in the comp, from a half to a second rower. And he's shown why he is one of the best, or one of the best second rowers in the comp, probably the best second rower at the Sharks currently.
Yep.
I forgot my other honorable mention. My other honorable mention was Jaden Sewer from the Dragons. I'm putting the bias aside.
Nah.
Come on, he's been great
this year, so that he's got a fair point there. He was Queensland Maroons second rower. I think had David Fafita, but I think Mr. Slater just has a strong dislike to Fafita.
To David Fafita.
I think
he hasn't been one of the best second rowers in the comp, but he's been that X factor towards the Dragons season. I think he's been probably the only man to stand up in that forward pack. Jack DeBellin not getting much minutes anymore. Blake Lowry being dropped or put back onto the bench, which who knows about that? And Hamsele, Francis Molo, kind of experimenting with that forward pack. But I think he's that X factor towards the Dragon. I think he is probably the third best player this season for the Dragons, behind Ben Hunt and behind Zach Lomax. But that's just a kudos to how many great players the Dragons have that can show their potential and show how great of a player they are.
Yep. Just to speed things up. So for the Rookie of the Year signing of the year, most improved, we aren't. I know. But for those things, we're not gonna do honorable mentions. We're just gonna do player. Okay? Because it's fucking been 30 minutes on this Daily M talk. Like, it's just yap at this point. So we're gonna do lock.
They are locks because we all have
lock,
the same
explain, and then Rookie of the Year, signing of the year, most approved. Just one player, okay? And explain.
We'll all say our lock at the same time because we all have the same lock and the same honorable mention, surprisingly.
Yeah. And,
okay.
Oscar, just cut out like all this shit, and when I fucking slapped it. All right, moving on to our Dalium lock of the year. I believe we all have put down Isaiah Yeo and Carrigan as our honourable mentions. Isaiah Yeo, stalwart at Penrith. He's just been doing Isaiah Yeo things all year, really stepping up as not only a captain and a player in the absence of Nathan Cleary. Really suits their system. He's just been fantastic all year. I think Pat Carrigan was really good in a struggling Broncos side this year, having to step up in the absence of Payne Haas. But I do believe Yeo was just slightly better this year.
Yeah.
Agreed.
We have all pretty much chosen those same players for lock, so we are going to move on to Rookie of the Year, and I've chosen Iro for the Sharks. He's been a great centre this year, and he's definitely he deserves this 100% Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. I've also
definitely
got Kale Iro down. I do think Lockie Galvin would have won this award if he didn't.
despite his suspension.
Unfortunately, he's now ineligible for that award, so I do believe that Kale Iro will take this out with ease. Ethan Strange did start the season quite strong, but he did drop off a little bit towards the back end of the season. So I think Kale Iro's a clear winner here.
Moving on to signing of the year.
Signing of the year.
So
I think we all have.
we've
Critter,
all
I think,
chosen
as our signing of the
Critter.
year.
That's a pretty obvious one. Great player this season, and yeah, he definitely deserves that spot there. And
He's really, really been a game changer for the Bulldogs. I don't think Bulldogs would be where they are without him. He's just been incredible. I don't think there's much more that needs to be said on Crichton. I think it's a great pickup for the Bulldogs, and he's just going to continue to improve that side.
yeah.
And then most improved.
Improved, I have Tommy Talau from Manly. I think I'm basing this on the biggest improvement I've seen from a player. Obviously, Tommy Talau was quite woeful at the Tigers last year. He's come across to Manly, and he has just been incredible. He looks like a completely different player, especially back half of the season. He had a game where he scored 4 tries, I believe. He's just try-scoring machine this year. He's been a completely different player. I definitely think he's improved his game the most in the competition.
Yep. So, and then for most improved, I've chosen Connor Watson. He's been a great player this year. He's definitely had to step up, especially now in the finals with Brandon Smith out for the rest of the season. So he's definitely got a key role to play. Connor Watson in the hooker position.
On that, Connor Watson earned himself a Origin jersey this year, so I do think that is good.
He's also a very useful player because he can also play 14 and lock, and what he's playing now, hooker. So, I mean, I feel like his best position is probably 14. Just come off on the bench, starting nice and fresh, rather than playing the full 90 minutes. That's what I think his role should be. But, however, with Brandon Smith being out, he's got a big role to fulfill, and I reckon he's the man to do the job.
My most improved of the year, I have Mitch Barnett. Said before, he's improved his game to another level. I think him going from being an average to decent NRL player to being one of the best props in the year this year, I think shows the commitment he has to the game, especially in place of Torval Harris. I think if he is off contract at the end of next season or 2 seasons down the line, I think there will be a very, very big battle between clubs to get him, because he's shown how great of a player he can be if he has the right coach to be able to mentor him and mold him into the player that he is. Got himself an Origin jersey this year, and I think he on the Origin stage he had a great series. That being said, most of the bench players on New South Wales were pretty good in the Origin series, being used as impact players. I think Mitch Barnett probably was one of the second best actually impact player for New South Wales behind Spencer Leniu in that series. I think he did a great job to his role, and he's done that to a T at the Warriors this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Finishing off Coach of the Year, I have Cameron Ciraldo. I think what he's building with this Bulldogs team is really good. I think as the past awards have gone as well, they tend to give it to a coach that has improved their team quite a lot, with Andrew Webster and Todd Payton taking it out in recent years. So for this, I believe that Cameron Ciraldo will take it out this year. Really improve that Bulldog side, taking them to a final spot. I think he will just continue to improve that team.
I think we're done here, guys. Thanks for watching. The next video we're gonna have a proper studio.
Tune in next week. We'll go over all this week's finals games. If you have any topics you'd like us to cover, please leave us some feedback. And
in the comments.
Thanks for tuning in to Golden Point.
Thanks for watching, guys.